So the police are identifying the shooter as a trans woman. It would actually be a trans man. So there's sort of a misidentification there, but this is all new. I'm just wondering, the identity of being a transgender person and also being identified as a woman, does this pose any sort of difference or difficulty for police, because it's not typically a woman, regardless of how they're identifying? So there are a couple of things here that are different and that we are going to have to talk about and delve into.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, guys, so we got to get into some of the reactions from the mainstream liberal media and also some local media outlets in regards to the news about the mass shooting that occurred in Nashville, Tennessee, in which you had an individual who happens to identify as transgender going inside of a Christian elementary school and shooting and killing kids and adults. Now, you would think that in a sane world, right, the reaction from the mainstream liberal media would focus on Christians, right, and the attack on Christians and why this happened, right? Is this a hate crime? Does this have something to do with maybe hatred towards Christians or Christianity, right? This is what they normally do, okay, in any other scenario where a so-called minority group is attacked, right? But no, what they're actually doing, and I honestly couldn't believe this clip when I saw it, you have a local news media outlet that is sounding the alarm about the supposed threat to the transgender community in response to this mass shooting rather than the Christian community. Take a look.
Hale, who police say identifies as transgender. That news has already prompted some attacks against the trans community. KPRC2's Bryce Newberry picks up our coverage from here.
Demonstrators at the Texas state capitol Monday fighting against anti-trans bills being considered by state lawmakers as news broke that the Nashville school shooter identifies as transgender.
It doesn't excuse anything that happened. I am concerned about how opposition and people who are anti-trans will try to spin this.
Concern about tweets like this from GOP Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, writing, "How much hormones like testosterone and medications for mental illness was the transgender Nashville school shooter taking? Everyone can stop blaming guns now."
The comparison of they did it because they're trans is very unfair to trans people.
Andrea Segovia from the Transgender Education Network of Texas joined Monday's battle at the Capitol, fighting House Bill 1686, which would block doctors from providing gender transition health care treatment to children. Now, with another reason for the Texas trans community to be in the spotlight and at least 2 months remaining of the legislative session, advocates worry the attacks aren't over.
You can't say that because one person did something that's a characteristic or reason to be cruel to trans people.
And tonight, while facts about the Nashville shooting are still surfacing, the Human Rights Campaign says trans people are much more likely to be victims of violence rather than perpetrators. Writing in a statement, regardless of the reason for this shooting, the use of violence is reprehensible, and we renew our call for common sense gun safety legislation. And
guys, can you believe that? Right? Can you actually really believe that? You had a mass shooting in which you had Christians, Christian children, okay, young kids get shot to death by some lunatic. Yeah, adults as well too. An attack on a Christian school. And what the media is worried about, what they're concerned about, is the response to it, to the transgender community. What about Christians? What about Christians? Should Christians not be worried that, hey, you know, we could be attacked because of the lies that are coming from the mainstream liberal media in regards to what they're telling transgender people, that, hey, they're under attack by religious people on the right? Should Christians not be worried about that? See, this type of shit, man, this is fucked up, man. Right? There's no other word for me to use to describe it. It just is. We've gotten to the point in our society where things are so effed up that the local news media, a local news media outlet, is quite literally going to run a story where they're more concerned about the trans community than they are about the Christian community, and the Christian community was the victim of the mass shooting. I don't understand. I don't get it. I mean, I'm so serious. What is it when it comes to these people and the grip that they have on the media and on society? If this incident right here, what happened in Nashville, Tennessee, if this doesn't make people sympathetic to Christians and make people take a step back and say, hey, we got a problem here, right? We got a problem with some of the rhetoric that's coming from the left in regards to what they're saying and the stuff that they're spewing, the radicalization that is currently going on. I don't know what will, because in my opinion, there's no attack on the transgender community, okay? Saying that, hey, we don't want kids to physically or chemically castrate themselves is not an attack on them, okay? Saying we don't want teachers talking to kids about sex in school is not an attack on them, okay? Saying we don't want kids being exposed to male strippers is not an attack on them. But you know what is an attack on Christians and Christianity? Is a mass shooter going into a Christian school and killing kids. That's an attack on Christianity. And this local news media has the cojones to run a story trying to play boohoo, whine, and cry victim like the transgender community is a victim. They're not a victim in this situation. This is pathetic. This is crazy. This is where we're at in this country, guys. Nobody's asking the question of, is there an attack on Christianity in this country? Because, you know, again, if this was an LGBTQ nightclub that got shot up or an LGBTQ event that was a victim of mass shooting, that's the question they will be asking. They'll be asking, is there an attack on LGBTQ people in this country? But when it happens to Christians, there's no questions about it. In fact, they're actually going to ask, hey, is there an attack on people like the shooter, right? Is there an attack on those people in this country? You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. And then we have CNN, who is basically having a conversation about whether or not the person's identity as a transgender person matters at all. Take a look.
The police are identifying the shooter as a trans woman. It would actually be a trans man. So there's sort of a misidentification there, but this is all new. I'm just wondering, the identity of being a transgender person and also being identified as a woman, does this pose any sort of difference or difficulty for police, because it's not typically a woman, regardless of how they're identifying? So there are a couple of things here that are different and that we are going to have to talk about and delve into.
Right. So each of these cases is always going to have a particular difference, right? Whether it's someone is angry at their father or someone had something happen at the school. And this is a unique case, and we have to be sensitive about it to the extent that Audrey Hale identified as a woman. We do not see mass shooters who are female, especially in particular school shooting murderers. This is actually, I think, the first time that I can remember. I know I was on air yesterday stating the same. And so that uniqueness is obviously going to go to only one part of this, right? Each of these school shootings has motive and means. Motive goes to the particular person. What's their mental health situation? What happened at the school? Why did they choose that target? As Andrew was saying, what clues did they leave behind? What was their community seeing? And then the means. And then that's when you get the connectivity, right? That's when you start to see these are all starting to look the same, right? I sort of think now, like, we don't own guns in this country. Guns own us at this stage. And this is where we have to now focus on an important part of an agenda, which includes mental health, protecting our kids, fortifying schools, but also the connectivity, which is a certain kind of gun. Look, pronouns do not kill children, right? People with guns kill children, and it's going to be a distraction in our coverage and keep us from what we now know, which is each of these cases has a similarity more than any difference.
Yeah, and police are identifying the shooter as a trans person, just so you know, right? Just so you know, and you're right, it shouldn't matter the pronoun, but it is something that is different, and people are discussing, and I think we should discuss it, also be sensitive about it, but it is an important part of the conversation.
Yeah, so you heard that, right? Pronouns don't kill children, guns kill children, right? Again, it's amazing how this CNN analyst, okay, this contributor, right? It's amazing how when you have a person that doesn't fit the narrative that commits a mass shooting, now all of a sudden, no, it's not about the person, okay? It's about the guns, okay? It's not about the identity. It's not about any of that. It's just simply about the guns. Let's talk about everything else outside of their identity. But if it's somebody that does fit the narrative, aka straight white male, all they want to talk about is identity, right? All they want to talk about is so-called white supremacy and how, oh, this is happening because of hate in this country, right? All they want to talk about is identity, right? But now all of a sudden, because the narrative don't fit, oh, we don't need to have this conversation about identity. It doesn't matter that it was trans, right? It doesn't matter what their pronouns were, right? We got to really actually judge somebody by more than their identity. Again, where was all this, again, when the straight white male commits a mass shooting? Because it's not about who they actually were or any of the other details about what may have happened in their life that may have led up to this. And no, it's about the fact that they're white, okay? And it is hatred, okay? Their identity is everything. The identity is why they did it. Again, it's amazing to me, the mental gymnastics that you're seeing from the mainstream liberal media in response to this. They already don't want to talk about it, right? But this is so big, they might have to talk about it, right? They might have to address it because it's going to look real bad if they don't, okay? Going to look real bad if they don't. They might have to address this one. And again, you can already see the mental gymnastics going on here. Well, let's be sympathetic and let's worry more about the trans community and the attacks on them than the fact that Christians just got attacked. Christians just got killed. How do you take a situation like this and you come to the conclusion that, the people that we actually really need to worry about are not, Christians or people on the right who have been attacked. Again, we saw Rand Paul staffer get almost stabbed to death in the middle of Washington, D.C. We've seen numerous attacks on Republicans and conservatives over the past few years that clearly are politically motivated. We had a few assassinations out in New Jersey of Republican council members, right? I did stories about that. It seems to be a pattern going on here, right? In regards to attacks on people who happen to be conservative, okay, on the right side of political aisle or Christian. And again, the mainstream media, what they can extrapolate out of this situation, a mass shooting against Christians, is that the trans community needs to be protected, right? Like they're under attack. Again, I'm not seeing that much violence towards them, to be quite honest with you. I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing all the alleged hate out there, right? Because again, political differences, saying that, hey, I don't agree with this legislation is not hate, right? It's not hate, okay? Again, it just blows my mind, man. It really does. Like, just the mental gymnastics for me, they bend over backwards to defend a certain group of people, and I just don't know what it is. What is it with this grip that this community has on the media and broader society as a whole? I don't understand it. I don't get it. Okay, but it's a scary thing, man. It really is. It is really scary where you have a mass shooting where you have Christians are the victims and they're not actually really concerned about the victims, or if there's attack on people like the victims, they're actually concerned about, is there an attack on people that are like the mass shooter? It blows my mind. It really does. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.